Hey everybody, Jennifer McCulloch with eXp Realty. And of course, you all know my good friend, Dusty B.
I just love you. I'm so glad I got to see you again.
We were just talking about how he's officially the first person to do 2 videos with me. So hopefully there'll be more to come. But so anybody who's just watching for the first time, this is another episode of Beautiful Conversations. And basically the purpose of these videos is just to kind of share conversation that's unscripted, kind of deep dive conversations that I have just in my personal life, right? Like these are just conversations that we would have when we get together, and we just want to share them with people because this journey is kind of hard. We're all in it together, and I feel like if there's like a little tidbit that you can take away that might help you along the way, then our job is done.
It's one of the things I love about you, because this isn't scripted. Like, this is you. We have these conversations all the time and have for years. I just love that you're giving people a glimpse of that, because it's important.
He just asked me before we started this if I was nervous, and I'm a lot less nervous than I usually am. But if you guys knew how hard it was for me to do these,
I think you like break out in hives. Like, it was scary.
Dusty's known me long enough that I would never have done video in the past. Do you remember those days? Like there was no way.
There would be days where you would be like literally just so anxious about it, and then you would do so good, and I'd be like, "Yay!" And you'd be like, "No, I hate it. I hate it." But
well, I don't rewatch them because I don't want to critique it. Now I do watch them like after they're posted, because if it's posted, it's already out there. What's done is done, and I do like to watch them because I do want to improve. I want to get better. But I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I can't watch them. But so what we want to talk about, if you guys had seen the video that I did previously on my book recommendation, it was the 4 Agreements. And Dusty's got it here. It's one of his favorites.
It is. It's such a good book. It's so small too. Like you look at this book, I remember when I first got it, and I was like, what? This is supposed to change my life?
Right?
And it really did.
Yeah, and I mean, how many pages is it? It's not even...
That's a good question. Like 140?
No. You guys, this is like a weekend read easily.
For
sure. So I had read this several years ago, and I know this has been kind of one of your go-to books, like over and over. So I'm curious if you had this experience when you reread it. But I just recently read it again, and it was funny because I could see all the notes that I had highlighted from like years ago, and it was completely different stuff. So it's interesting, like when you're in a different place in your life, how all of a sudden you can draw like new little nuggets of information, and something resonates a little more. Do you find that?
For sure. Just like everybody else, right? Like life is always changing, and we know that that's going to happen. We know it happens every day, but when you look back in totality at how, 5 years from it's just a lot has changed. Yeah. But you have changed, and the things that are important to you have changed, and the lessons that you've learned are changed. I think anytime you're reading a book like this, like a self-help book, it's so important to apply it into your life, right? To really stop and go, okay, what are they saying, and how can I learn from this? And this book is so easy to do. Yeah. It's so easy to kind of pull that back. I recently reread it. We started a new book club, and I was like, it's kind of dumb. Like, everybody knows this book, and
but they don't.
And I actually did the audio version of it this time. And Dan is he's the author, and it was just not Dan. Don, Here, I'm a freshman on this book. I don't even know his name, but it was just. I think the biggest takeaway at first was how he goes into detail on how much you learn as a kid on what you should be. And what is appropriate and what's right, and how that kind of influences your life even as an adult. So that I've read that before and heard that, but it didn't really mean anything. This time it was like, whoa, so much of who I am was perceived and learned, when I was growing up, and what I was supposed to be, and how I was supposed to feel love. Yeah.
Well, I think that's the thing that kind of like ties everybody together, because no matter what your background is, we all are products of the culture we were raised in, the principles that your family had, whatever, religious beliefs they had, or cultural beliefs they had, areas you grew up in. I mean, social norms, right, are going to be very different in different areas in different states. Yeah. So I think it's interesting to me because that's kind of the norm for everybody, but yet we sort of, I think that we're like unique to it. Like, oh, it's just me going through this.
Yeah. That is interesting, right? Like, growing up as a kid, I've got teenagers now that are getting ready, middle
crazy.
school. I know it's so crazy, right? But they're kind of going through those things where it's like, oh, this person was mean to me today, and how you can just see it in their faces when they come home. And you're like, what is going on? And then it takes you back to your time. Like, I remember being a kid growing up and believing that everybody, like my parents smoked. And I was the kid that, like, I would take a bottle of Febreze and I would spray myself before I went in. I was in Shelley High School, and, nobody smokes there.
Yeah.
They do, but
a little more conservative.
yeah. And that mattered so much to me, but nobody really believed that about me. Nobody, like, now I've talked to many friends and I say that story and they're like, you never smelled like smoke. Now, whether I did or didn't is irrelevant. They didn't take that away because it wasn't what they were focused on.
Yeah.
But, and Rustin came home the other day and he's like, oh, this person's been mean. But it has nothing to do with Rustin.
No.
It's not about him,
Yeah.
So it's so cool to apply those things. And you talk about, I'm a deeply religious person. I believe in having that has really shaped me in a lot of ways. But to apply that into your life has been harder.
It always is. It's a lot easier to say or to read, but to actually implement is like a whole different level.
That's what I love about these. And right here in the first part of this book, I mean, anybody can Google this, but the 4 agreements are simple. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions, and always do your best. Yeah. And it's so crazy to me how those different principles, one day I may struggle a little bit with always doing your best. I get tired and lazy and I want to go to bed. One day it may be don't take anything personally. Like maybe somebody was really mean to me at the gas station.
Yeah.
It's not about me.
Exactly.
And so they all kind of play their own role.
Well, I think that's why this is such a great book to come back to, because you're always going to be learning something new and implementing something new. So I know for me in the past, a lot of the stuff was based around the forgiveness aspect and learning to forgive people because things that have happened aren't about me. I mean, it's easy to internalize that and take things personal. But when you really start to understand that concept, you see people in a different way, and not in like a judgy way, but you're more empathetic and understanding that whatever they're going through or whatever they feel about themselves, like the way they may treat you or react towards you is really more about them. And man, it kind of is freeing.
I was just going to say that word. Yeah.
It's not easy. I mean, I'm still a work in progress myself, right? But it does give you a new lease on life. And so I know for me, like the whole forgiveness piece in the past was huge. This time, the big one I took away was being impeccable with your word. And it wasn't so much about just like doing what you say you're going to do, but it was more about like how you talk to yourself and how you treat yourself, because that ultimately is going to transfer over to how you talk to and treat other people.
Yeah, it was a big kind of powerful moment for me when I realized that when somebody is being mean, you almost kind of felt empathy for them. Yes, they're being mean to you and it's hurtful, but then you're like, man, what is that inner voice like for them? Like, how are they treating themselves? And that enables you to kind of give that forgiveness, right? I think the one thing for me too that I was just looking at, it was right here. Don't make assumptions. So obviously, like, you don't want to make assumptions. What is that? What happens when you assume? You make an ass out of me and you or whatever, and it's true. But for me, it's also having the courage to ask the right questions. Sometimes I'm a people pleaser and I don't want to like upset anybody and I don't want to like stir the cart, or I feel bad. And so I hold things back or I don't say exactly how I feel, but that often leads to those misunderstandings, which creates more problems. So it is healthy to say, hey, I don't think we're okay. Like, are we good? Can we just talk about these things? And I crave that now because I want to just be free. If we're that way, like we know we're good, we're good. Yeah. But if you have to wonder about where you're at with somebody, that can...
Well, we all do it. We all create like a story in our mind of maybe why something took place or why somebody's doing something. We all do that. And it's interesting because if you stop yourself in that moment and kind of go, wait a minute, is this like actual fact? Is this actually 100% true, or is it just what I'm assuming, right? But I mean, when you do that, it's interesting because it'll start making you think about those things differently, or asking the questions and going, I actually have no idea. So I have two choices here. I can reach out to this person and just find out if it's something that is really you need to find out about, or is it really none of my business and I shouldn't be talking about it and not creating a story that is in my own mind. Because you guys, it's funny, once you bring it to your awareness, that how much, because we do this so subconsciously. Like, you guys, like, this is not something we should beat ourselves up about. This is human nature. It's so subconscious. But I believe that once it's in your awareness, you can't unsee it.
Yeah, for sure.
And then it becomes a choice, right? Like in those moments where you can stop yourself. You're still learning and growing, but like to be able to stop yourself in those moments and go, oh, wait a minute. Okay, I'm totally assuming here. I need to just back up, and how can I look at this differently? And that's how it begins, right? Like just those baby steps. It's not like all of a sudden you're just going to be perfect one day and never assume anything. Or
the in the book, and just as you're talking, I'm remembering this, but he talks about the needless suffering we go through, and by refusing to stop ourselves or to ask the right questions or to do our best, the suffering that we put ourselves through, the needless suffering, the suffering that is pointless, that is holding you back from all the other good things you want to do and be, are in some ways your own doing. And again, don't feel bad about that. It's not like you're a bad person. We all do it, but as you pull that out of your consciousness and you're able to be like, okay, I've been doing this, and I think it's also very healthy. Like I can, because of this book in some ways and other things I've read, I can go, I've made mistakes in my life. And I did, have a part in that really bad thing that happened. And I wish that I didn't, but I did. And, these simple rules can just help create some peace and happiness. It's such a powerful book.
It really is. And that's what I love about it, is it's a simple read, you guys, but holy cow, there's also so much depth to it. And, just to kind of take it to a little bit more personal level, I mean, when you just talked, it just made me think when you talked about the needless suffering, how we kind of create our own needless suffering. 100%. So a great example that I know we can kind of share in a little bit, but for myself, it was going through my divorce. And you're going through all the feelings and the sadness and the anger and the frustrations and all the things. And it's funny because this book, when you start implementing and really thinking about these things about, why couldn't this person do that for me? Or why, maybe they didn't love me enough.
Why couldn't they love me?
Or why didn't this change? But when you start seeing it differently and seeing them differently, it kind of helps you heal. Because now you don't feel like I'm not good enough, or I didn't deserve this, but you also think they don't deserve it either. Like it really opens your heart in a way that is very, very therapeutic, I feel like. And it's not to say all that's just gonna get swept into the rug easily, but man, it sure, like you said, takes away some of that suffering, and it does make your ability to move forward and feel okay about what's happened and feel good about it, and remove the icky feelings we can have that just bog us down, the inability to forgive or hatred, if it's that, I know that's not it for you, and certainly not for me, because that's just not who we are. I don't think we can hate anyone. But, those feelings are strong. They're strong, right?
They definitely have their spots.
We've all had people do us wrong in some way or another. And, but it's just, it does eliminate some of that suffering, because then you can kind of just release that weight from your shoulders a little bit. And it's a process, you guys. It's baby steps, but it's sometimes really freeing again.
For sure. You ever heard the saying, I'll forget, or I'll forgive you, but I'll never forget? I think that's kind of a cop-out in a way. Like when you kind of go through these and you can actually do both. I'll forgive you, but I'm never going to let you back in my world. And that may be the case. They maybe shouldn't be in your life, but you can get to a place where you're totally free of all of those negative feelings because you understand them. You've gone through the different things. They did their best. Maybe their best wasn't enough, but they did their best. Therefore, have no real space to hold ill will towards
Yeah.
them. And you're able to say, it wasn't about me, you didn't hate me, or it wasn't because I deserved it, it was just because you couldn't do what I needed you to do, or X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And you can free. Like, I feel pretty free from those things
Yeah.
at this point. And the other thing is just, you got to read it more than once.
Yeah, I think it's a definite, like, now that I have read it again, I feel like for me it needs to be an annual, just a quick weekend, every year, put it on my docket and make sure I do it, because I'm sure I'll get something new every time from it. So I had said this on the last video, I honestly would love to share this with you. So if you are interested in a book, like, please send me a message, comment here, like we'll mail you a book. I would love for you to have a copy. You can get it on Audible, but it's so great. So
Audibles, I know you like your Kindles. I love Audible. When I can hear their voice, sometimes authors are like, welcome to Audible.
It's
no,
too dry.
But he's got a lot of passion in his voice. Like, I highly recommend the Audible.
Well, maybe next time I'll do that. The reason I like either the physical copy or I do the Kindle a lot because it's easy for like traveling and stuff. I love to like highlight things because then I go back, there's like a little spot where you can click on my notes and I can go back and pull up all the things I highlighted.
From that page?
From the whole book.
Oh.
There's like a little link. If you do Kindle,
Yeah.
you can click like my notes or whatever, and it pulls up every page that you've highlighted notes on or whatever. You
That's
can go
cool.
to that page and kind of like see what
Remember it and
resonated
go
with
to
you.
it.
So that's why I like it. Whereas Audible, maybe I'm not a great listener. My husband would tell you I'm not. It's not that I'm not a great listener. I don't retain super well.
Yeah.
And if I can't make notes, it's a little harder for me. But I do like Audible, and I do some of it because time-wise, it's much better.
It is.
But at least there's something for everybody.
For sure,
So,
yeah.
Anyway, well, you guys, if you have a recommendation for us, a book that you think we would love to read, we are obviously both big readers. We're going to be on to the next thing. What's one maybe you want to share right now? That you're
right
on?
now we're reading The Gap and the Gain. And so initially it talks a lot about how, it's a kind of a business book, but in some ways it's also, you're either in the gap or you're in the gain. So the gain is when you're looking at your life and you're like, look how far I've come in the past. The gap is you judge yourself based on basically today and not the growth that you've made. So it's just a perspective of changing your mind and kind of shifting that. And then this is totally off topic, but I'm reading a couple other really great books that are just inspiring me to go to the gym and be manly.
You obviously have all been watching him, so I'm sure we'll see some more shirtless photos. Nobody's complaining.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm proud of you.
No, it's just cool to see. Like, I never thought I'd be that guy. And every time I post, I'm like, do I really need to do this? But it just feels good to get to a healthy spot and see growth.
Well, if anyone deserves that, it's you.
Thank
so
you.
I think it's great, and I'm proud of you. And
Thanks.
now I
Sure
need to go to the gym and lift some weights. Anyway, all right, you guys, thank you so much for watching. Again, Deep Dive Conversations, and thank you, Dusty.
Thank you. Bye.